She awoke. She rose. She lingered. Awake, but as if dreaming, she walked through the woods with her naked feet. In awe, she marveled at the sight of monumental shapes that threatened to cut the sky wide open. She touched the rough texture covering them, and she found that life itself posed beneath. "Hello," she said. The wind rushed to answer her with brittle ruffled sounds and used the world as its wind chime. "Pleased to meet you too," she responded, as her lips curved into a smile. She sat down at the roots and stayed there long enough to grow her own. A ripe plum fell to the ground for her to eat, and she tasted its tender meat with relish, while the savory juices ran down her chin. With renewed power, she rose for more of this adventure. With sheer delight, she started running. She ran faster, faster, and faster, until nothing mattered but this. The soft moss underneath her feet, the bright colors surrounding her, the gentle wind against her face. She was not alone, and she knew she'd never be alone again. When her feet came to rest, she found herself facing a parallel world, a floor of clear, still water, mirroring the one she was in. She laughed for the first time and sprung into it like a child in a puddle, and there she danced and danced and danced. With her head leaned back, arms stretched out, she spun around and around and around, kicking her feet, making crystal diamonds float through the air before crashing into the ground. When her feet could no longer hold her, she stopped and fell into the arms of the damp forest floor. And there she rested until she needed to rest no more. And she climbed mountains high up in the air where the birds would not venture, surrounded by clouds with sunset eyes, shouting at the top of her lungs, "I am free! Free!" And she was. And she was. In this place, she felt free, she felt safe, she felt loved. But there was something missing. The one thing that connected it all. This vast, striking, dazzling place vibrated with anticipation. But for what? She walked where her feet led her, ate when she was hungry, slept when she was tired, and she walked, searched, wandered. The stars and moon shone away at night, the sun by day. Everything she saw was new to her, but everything somehow familiar. Every day had marvels hidden in this womb, and every day she'd see them birthed, more and more lovely. A butterfly's fragile wings, the intoxicating smell from lilies of the valley, the sound of waves crashing into the rocky shores. They were all there, cheering for her, at times seemingly begging her to continue. And she walked, searched, wandered. And one evening, when the treetops were lit with starlight and the air was cool and comforting, she stopped. She sat down and didn't rise. The wonders did not move her. They had all gotten quiet, like they were holding their breath. And as it turned out, They had. For it was at this moment, at this very small glen, that she met him, the core. She met him there and found she'd known him forever. He took her hands and brought her up, and in his eyes were all the answers. He had made this, all of this, for her. All of it, for her. It was him she had felt in the tree, in the wind, in the ripe plum, and on top of that mountain. And she loved him. Loved him. Loved him. And she realized to be with him was all she had ever longed for. She threw her arms around him, and he returned the embrace wholeheartedly, kissed her on the head, and never let her go. For from that moment on, they never parted. They ran through the forest together, screaming with laughter until they fell to the ground exhausted. They made their way through hidden paths where no one had ever ventured, and drew maps in the sand. They climbed the highest mountains, bathed in the freezing waterfalls, and sang like there was no tomorrow. He taught her about everything, and loved her through everything, for he looked at her and saw perfection through her faults, and she looked at him and saw everything, everything, for he held nothing back. With him she was freer than she ever had been, and she treasured every moment until the very last one. "You know I will never leave you," he said, one day as the sun set and the birds lifted. "I know it," she replied, surely. His expression turned poignant. a look she had never seen on him before. She put her hand on his shoulders reassuringly, and he held on to it and told her about another world he had created that had forgotten all about him, the one she had come from. Tears rolled down his cheeks, and words became difficult to construct. "What can I do?" she asked, moved by his love. "Would you go back there?" he asked, meeting her gaze without expectations. "I went there and placed my footprints so that anyone who wishes to can see it, but if you would go there and tell them." He smiled with a sparkle of anticipation in his eyes. "Show them." "Show them?" "Yes, show them." I don't think I quite understand." "You don't need to. I will lead you. I will be there by your side, not in the way I am now, but I will always be there. And with you I can do anything," she said, without doubt. He nodded, delighted to see her faith in him. "When you wake, you will be there." "So soon?" "It is time." After a moment of quiet, she nodded. "I love you," she said quietly as she lay down to rest. He brushed her hair from her temple and kissed it. "I love you too." A slumber weighed her eyes down and unconsciousness took her. She heard him whisper, "Remember me." "I promise." And when she awoke, she found herself surrounded by metal and plastic, so sterile amid her skin cracked to touch it, so empty and lonely, so meaningless. She felt robbed, she felt wronged, she felt pain. It wasn't the reality she wanted, not the one she remembered. Her heart sank as the coldness enveloped her and she mourned her loss, for she knew she'd never get to see that place again in this world. But she yearned for the day when she'd see it again, see him again. but he was still with her, invisibly, and would never leave her. Trapped deep within it all, he was everywhere, but in broken form. Divorced from original purpose, she'd gather the memories and give them new functions through broken beauty. The scars still showing. And through every way possible, and in every material she could get her hands on, she tried, by homage or by longing, to make this other world like the one it had forgotten. So simple, so human, and so damn hard to convey in a world that has forgotten, in a world that has forgotten.